What's up, and welcome back to Nerd Level Rising. This is where we talk about all the nerdy stuff that we like. And today, I want to draw some special attention to the Godeater Saga by Rob J. Hayes. A little bit of background on this, right? I have not read very much self-published fantasy. My first introduction to it was, I think like quite a few people, was The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. And I got into that series from watching Mike from Mike's Book Reviews and just gushing about that series and how good it was. And I was like, man, I gotta try it. And it was every bit as good as he said, right? It was just fantastic, and I loved it. And at the end of that, I was like, I want to check out some more. So I tried Michael R. Miller's Songs of Chaos series, The Ascendant, and I've read Unbound, and it was good, right? It's not my favorite thing ever, but it is good. I like it. And I was like, okay, let's try some more stuff. And I've known about Rob J. Hayes for quite some time. Obviously, he's gotten a lot of buzz online for things like Never Die and books like that have just become very popular. And I wanted to try it, and I just didn't know where to start exactly. And a while back, I heard about this project he announced called the Godeater Saga, and how it was just going to be a trilogy of trilogies that are released all book ones and then all book twos and then all book threes. And I was just like, that's so weird and different, and I love it, and I want to be in on that, right? That sounds incredible. And the whole idea was that he could then weave together these mysteries and these reveals in a different way through the timeline of the world. And it's just like such an interesting idea to me. And unfortunately, I heard about this right after the Kickstarter ended, so I wasn't able to get in on the nice hardbacks from the Kickstarter, but I was able to get physical copies nonetheless. And oddly, these were delivered before the official release dates, so that is kind of weird, but I felt special because I got to read them early. But I just want to talk about this series because it's so good, and it just feels so special and so unique, and I just want more people to experience it. So the Godeater Saga is the Age of the Godeater, right? So where book one is called Herald. This is like the main series, right? These big chunky boys. It's very long, right? This is true epic fantasy. This is the current timeline right here with the Age of the Godeater. Then we have the first prequel series, and thankfully, probably for the sake of our TBRs, the prequel trilogies, both of them are novellas, right? So they're much shorter. So we have the main novels in the present timeline. Then we get the first one about 1,000 years in the past, the Annals of the Godeater. Book one is called Deathless. And then about 3,000 years before that, I believe, is the Archive of the Godeater, where book one is called Demon. And these collectively make up the first phase of the saga of the Godeater, right? So what is this about? Well, this is about a world where humans have sort of risen up and rebelled against God and rebelled against heaven. And it seems to me, based on my reading of these books, that this isn't necessarily like, the Christian heaven and God that it exists in our world and in that religion, right? It seems like it's a separate thing from that. It is very much its own thing within the world of these books. So this is not something that's taking place in our world. It is a completely secondary world. But those same terms are used. But nonetheless, right? That's sort of the premise of this story, that the humans were oppressed, right, or felt oppressed by the angels and God, and they rose up and tried to overthrow them, and they succeeded and killed God. And then now this book is about Herald, is about what is happening 1,000 years after that, right? And we're following this girl named Rhaenyra, who really, at the start of the book, it's very much classic hero's journey fantasy, right? It's very much what it feels like. You have all of your classic tropes that are happening through there, and then you start this, kind of travelogue, journey through this book, and we're meeting other characters, and there's a lot of familiar, right? A lot of familiar tropes, and it feels very not formulaic, but just like, okay, I've seen this before. It's different. It's certainly different, but I've seen this before. And this is not a bad thing. Just to be very clear, I don't mean this in a bad way at all. The Wheel of Time is one of my favorite things ever. Faithful and the Fallen, one of my favorite things. Bound and the Broken, one of my favorite series. Like, this is not a bad thing. It just is familiar. But there were some things in the middle of the book that I found myself being like, oh, that was clunky, or that was kind of heavy-handed, or like, yeah, I know this is gonna be the twist at the end. It's obvious. Like, all right, come on, dude. And I was so wrong. I was so wrong, man. Like, it just, the twist at the end, everything turned on its head. I was caught in the web so soundly. And it was just, I get chills now even thinking about it, right? And I remember I was reading the book and I saw the twist happen, and it was just one of those where you're like, you know, and you freeze and your eyes just bug out of your head, and I couldn't believe it, right? It was crazy. It was so well executed, and the old bait and switch, man, he got me. Rob J. Hayes got me. So that the ending of Herald turned me into a huge Hayes fan, and I can't wait to read more. And that's why I had to jump straight into these novellas. I was planning on reading Herald, taking some time away, then doing Deathless, a little bit of time, and then coming back and doing Demon. But I read them all straight through. I had to. I couldn't not do it. And it also worked out well because I was in the process of moving into a new apartment, and a nice quick read was nice because I only had tiny little pockets of time where I could get away and read for a little bit. And, so that played a part as well. But nonetheless, so we have that. Herald was just, the characters are great. There's some really cool, unique things happening. There's some really dark things that happen. There's some really lighthearted, fun things that are happening. So you're kind of hitting the whole spectrum of what you might expect from a fantasy story like that. You're getting some of those classic tropes. Some of them have a nice little unique twist. There are some mysteries in here that I'm really, really intrigued to see them solved, to get some more answers. There are some more questions that popped up by the end of just things like, okay, that came out of nowhere. What does that mean? And just things I'm really excited about. Then when I closed that book and I was like, okay, let's get to these prequel novellas now. So I opened up Deathless, and I knew what that was. It's a story 1,000 years before, right? So this is chronicling the story of the humans rebelling, right? And so we're centered around this one character, and we're seeing some other characters that pop up later in Herald, right? So people have very long lifespans, and we are just exploring this character in a much more intimate way, and we're seeing a depth that we didn't know existed in Herald, and seeing it in the past and seeing things from his perspective, and it just, man, some of the way that it was able to play with my expectations and how some of these things were revealed was just so cool to go back in the timeline like that and see that. But then to go back even further into Demon and see really the beginning of this one like mythical figure that is referenced in Herald. And even in Deathless, they talk about it. But to see her story in Demon was satisfying in and of itself, right? And also, just to be clear, we're only getting the beginning. This is book 1 of 3, right? So there's still much more of each of these 2 novella stories. But it's satisfying in its own right. But what's really special about Demon, I think in particular, is seeing the reversal of a twist reveal that happened in Herald. So we get like a twist of a twist. It's not really a reversal, but it's a twist of a twist. And it's now at a point where after reading all 3 of these, I have no idea who to believe. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. I don't know who's lying on purpose. I don't know who thinks they're telling the truth, but they actually don't know. I don't know who's actually telling the truth. I don't know who to root for. I don't know who's actually the hero and who's actually the villain. It's so well done in how intricately all these pieces are woven together, at least so far. Okay. As I understand it, I believe he has written everything already and he's just releasing it in stages. So that makes me feel like he probably wrote all of the main books together and then all of this prequel series together. And that would be my guess, right? So that he could go back then and revise and make sure all the pieces fit, all the foreshadowing was there. all the reveals, all the everything makes sense. Which makes me feel like he's going to stick the ending, because if he sticks this ending, dude, what just an incredible journey this is going to be. And I'm so excited to be in it from the beginning, from phase 1 here with these books. And I just can't describe how much fun I've had with this, how much this is stuck in my head. Like, not all series stick in your head. You're right. Like, sometimes you read a book and it's great, but then, you put it down, pick up the next book, and you just it fades away, right? This one hasn't done that. This one has stuck around. So please read this. This, like I said, this turned me into a big Rob J. Hayes fan, and I'm already like, okay, when can I break my TBR to read more of his stuff? Because I need it, right? I think The War Eternal is going to be my next Rob J. Hayes read, because I've heard great things about that series. I think they're relatively, 300, 400, 500 pages, something like that. It's not crazy, not super long. I think it's 5 books long. So I'm very excited to get to that. I'm not sure when I can make it happen, because there's certain things, I need to read Bloodsworn to get ready for Fury of the Gods, and I need to, I have to keep going with Sun Eater because it's my obsession, and whatever. So it might be hard to get it done super soon, but I want to get it in there as soon as I can, because man, this was just I don't even know, just fantastic. So please check this out. If you have not, you will not regret it. Thank you for watching. This has been Nerd Level Rising.